Sure, absolutely. So I started off in I started off in advertising about a decade ago. Before that, I was a Sirius XM radio personality and a touring musician all around the United States. Um, and I basically moved to LA, got a job doing data entry, and I got an MBA. I got my dog here now too. So it's in that time I've worked my way up from data entry, the lowest level, to being. It took me a couple of years, but I ended up being supervisor of a major international conglomerate ad agency where I was managing $1 million a day DR and branding spends on a regular basis, and ultimately worked from there to different Facebook marketing partners and some other people, eventually got to the point where I was managing half a dozen brands across half a dozen platforms, spending $50,000 to $1 million a day for different business objectives up and down. And then ultimately, when you and I met, where I was working, I brought that brand from maybe $5,000 or $10,000 a day to $30,000 to $50,000 a day, and while increasing efficiency while doing it. And we had been designated a Facebook disruptor, which basically means that Facebook has this internal team of the top 100, 130 advertisers, and I was basically the lead guy on that. It was funny, at the event that you were talking about, there's like who's spending $10,000 a month, who's spending whatever, and then it was like, who's spending $100,000? I was like, me. And there's like, how much you guys spending a month? Well, we do roughly $1 to $2 million a month. And it was like, it was really interesting. And then my boss dropped his Tesla keys into the ice bucket, and it was awkward. And it was funny too. Like, I've been inside of Facebook groups helping people out for years. And so I knew Tim Bird and the Cat Howells and Nick Shackfords of the world from that. And when I walked in, there was a guy in my group behind me and a guy in my group in front of me. So like when I walked in, I was already, people were asking like, are you speaking on this thing? Are you gonna be doing that? I'm like, oh no, I'm just here to whatever. And so that was great. And also going to traffic and conversion summits and all these other big things. It's great to see those people. And so now what happened is, once I got into the Facebook disruptor ecosystem with the top 100 or 30 or so advertisers, half of those people end up being customers of mine in big, international brands. I don't want to like drop names because it's not important. But huge budgets, huge brands, people that are basically, what we ended up doing was, it's the branch of internal advertisers on Facebook that work with the product team and the auction team and the customer service and everybody. So we're testing out individual things. So like when CBO came out, we were getting $100,000 a month, $1 million a month, testing coupons from Facebook to define the best practices. So a lot of times when I would see people trying to teach, like, what's going well, what is the best practice, what isn't, and I was seeing that it was actually based on a bunch of mistakes and work that I had done 6 and 9 months earlier. And so it was really great to kind of just be recognized as that. And I think for me, the most exciting thing is knowing that it's what Facebook does better than anybody else is generate intent and use this big machine learning, and being on the very bleeding edge where I knew friends in the messenger team, in the product team, in the auction team, like, the guy that does all of the teaching for the North America when they go onto the Facebook Blueprint coursework. The guy that does all the voiceovers, Sheedy, he's like wishing me congratulations when I got engaged. Like, these are all now my friends, right? And so being somebody that was challenging all of those people and teaching them was really great. And I think that one of the lessons I learned early on was everybody listens to the reps. If you're better than the rep, you're better than 80% of the people. So my thing was just get to the point where I'm teaching the reps, and then I'm better than everybody. And I was a rough employee at the time because I was always breaking the rules to try to test things. Mm-hmm. But I learned now that I've been in the biz and supervisor and a director level for a long time, I understand like where the value comes from those. And ultimately what ended up happening, I found, was that the way that I was solving problems was just was different than the way that everybody else was doing it, because I wasn't responding to lessons that were 9 months or 2 years old, because I had already gotten them, because I already worked on the case study to beat that. So I've always found myself ahead of the curve on everything that was happening. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we can get into this big, huge deep dive, but I think it's really built around account simplicity and really working on identifying what your number one most important business objective is, and then solving for that in a really systematic testing way, and centralizing as much spend and as much data as you can into a centralized location. Because Facebook, what it does better than anybody else is their machine learning is better than anybody else at creating intent. And what they need is content from you to keep people clicking. And the reward that you get for people's attention is rewards by them spending your money. So I think that what I have to say is the number one thing that I think that I do differently than other people is I don't try to cheat the system. I try to empower the system to do all the work for me, because I can manage 6-figure a month ad budgets on like less than 90 minutes a day, a few days a week. And I'm accomplishing way more than people that are spending 8 hours a day beating their head into the wall, chasing their tail. I've seen the results in business, and also understanding that when you're an advertiser, you're not just trying to get the best results out of the system, but how it understands in the overall business context. I've seen people that try to scale their business by launching 20 different products. And I've seen people succeed by having 3 and just having good customer service. I understand like what the impacts of like why a 10x ROAS might be terrible is because like maybe your cost of goods, you're not accounting in, you know, any of these other facets. And like maybe you're doing phenomenal on a video view campaign, but really that's just because it's driving the email thing and you're getting credit for everybody else's work. But at a business objective, that's not actually producing anything, you're just creating waste. So like if you can understand how Facebook can be incremental to the business and then hyperbolically blow that thing up to as big as it can be, then you're providing the most value. And if you're providing the most value, you're going to get more and more ad dollars. When you get more and more ad dollars, you can make more and more mistakes, which means you're going to get better and better and better.
Learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the reason that I was able to do that, and one of the reasons why I think that I got this great leapfrog forward, was being the guy that managed not only the Facebook, but the Pinterest, the Snapchat, the Google, the, you know, every platform all at once, and understanding that how they interplay, what the contribution to the bottom line that they all do, as well as also managing like an email team and the site development team and the ads team. And then also there was a point in time at an ad agency where my job was basically, when a client works with an ad agency, there's usually a few agencies that have different responsibilities. So my job was basically, okay, we're bringing Charley in so that he can steal 50% of the budget from everybody else. How do we basically undermine how do we prove that we're more valuable than everybody else so we can get a larger pool? And that way we can centralize our money, provide more value, and get bigger profit. So my job basically became, how do I steal money from other people so I can do a better job? Which basically meant, how can I show value in a more honest, direct, and efficient manner than other people? And when I was able to get really good at that, it became about prioritization and understanding the way business works together. And I think that no lesson was better than that for me, because ultimately, as an advertiser, you're talking to business owners and you need to drive business results. Yeah, so I think, well, first off, we can define what the Facebook feed really is. And I think there's a massive misconception. Every single Facebook post is actually a web page. Your Facebook feed is just navigating through web pages like search results in Google. So when you are seeing a Facebook feed, it's them trying to deliver you the most interesting content. And because Facebook's #1 commodity is attention. So they need people to stay on, and what works for them is what they call thumb stopping. The average user on their phone will scroll through the height of the Eiffel Tower on a daily basis. What can you do to stop them for 30 seconds? Right? And if you can do that, you're providing value to the platform by creating content that the user wants to see. So I think ultimately a lot of people look at, how do I sell the product the best? How do I do all this? And when you understand that really the Facebook auction that occurs when it's placing ads inside of the feed, and they used to call it the edge ring system, and they have some other name for it now. But really what they're doing is they're trying to show somebody the content they feel that person will be most likely to take an action on. When Facebook does the auction, it's the way that they calculate your actual bid, your cost per impression, is your budget and your estimated action rate. That estimated action rate isn't a desired necessarily, isn't a conversion. It's not a subscription or a purchase or a lead or whatever it is that you're doing, an app download, whatever. It's, is this person taking any action, whether it's positive or negative? And then based on that, they're then going to do a qualitative analysis on whether or not it's amount of time, whether it's positive sentiment, negative sentiment. They can punish you if you're basically making people unhappy with Facebook. If they show an ad, they click on it and then they'll come back to Facebook for the rest of the day, you're not going to be in the feed. So understanding that your job as an advertiser is to provide content to keep people on the platform, and then then the platform will deliver you a more desired result. It is really strong. And what Facebook's news feed is just their amalgamation of everything that they think you're going to be interested in and everything that you're going to respond positively to, and not just see it, but actually engage with it. Like if you're delivering content that people X out of when they say hide the ad, or if they're leaving negative content, or if they're leaving negative comments, people monitor social proofing and they think of it inside of their comment section as, well, I only want good reviews. It's like an Amazon review section that I can monitor, which is part of the story. Absolutely true. The other half is Facebook looks to content that people want to engage in, and they want people to engage positively and communicate with each other. So if you have content where the comment section is conversations, so people can build community and talk together, you're going to get a lower CPM inside the marketplace, and you're going to be shown to more people for cheaper because your content is better at doing what Facebook wants to do, which is occupy your time by connecting you with other people so that you have conversation. I think, you know, it's really around, there's a lot of different ways of doing it. I think I've seen people solve it in many different ways. One is, you know, having content. One of the ways that used to be great was, hey, comment below with what you think. And then Facebook started to really penalize you for that. And then, you know, there used to be stuff where, well, let me put it this way. What works really well is when a brand doesn't always focus on selling. When a brand has content that isn't always about yourself. For instance, I've got a band. I'm a musician. There's one of my guitars. I can turn this thing around and there's 20 other on the wall. And then on like this case, and I'm obsessive. But one of the things that I do to get my band a lot of attention is we have over 50,000 followers on Instagram. We get millions of views on YouTube. It is
for everyone so they can look you up.
It's Dirty Cakes Band. Here, I'll find it on Instagram right now so I can just like hold it up to the thing. But one of the things that we do, here you go, Dirty Cakes Band.
Nice. Make sure you
Verified.
Go check them. You got to come to the island. You got to play a punk show at the island. I'm excited.
I'm down. But one of the things I think that that brands really miss is talking about the identity of the brand. Really big brands mean something to somebody. Most people think that they have a product and that means they have a business. If you have a product, that's not a business. That's you're selling an individual product. You're a guy on the street selling something, which you can make a shit ton of money selling product. That's fine. But if you have a business, it needs to have an identity so that somebody has an emotional connection to your product. And I think that that is a major thing that a lot of people miss is the emotional connection. You know, I always refer back to the golden circle. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but and there's a TED talk about it, and there's business about it. But when I was at this evil conglomerate ad agency, which I'll leave their name out of it, but their social lead, the guy that was in charge of everything on Facebook, he taught me this, and it's when people are selling computers, right? IBM says we have the fastest processor and the best this and the best that. All of our numbers are better than everybody else. You should buy our product. What Steve Jobs did with Apple was say, we have something fun that makes your life better, that's going to solve problems. And oh, by the way, it happens to be a computer. And we're going to sell it to you in a way that's really easy to use. They're not telling you that everything is great because it generally usually isn't. But what they're doing is they're emotionally solving your problem for you. And you see this with a lot of brands, like McDonald's does that, where they're not selling you, hey, our chicken nuggets are the best in the world. They're showing you happy children, right? Nike isn't showing you that, Nike isn't saying our shoes are going to make you jump faster or jump higher and run faster. They're saying, look at everybody that's like doing this thing, right? Sprite is another one where they align themselves with like hip hop and basketball. They're creating brand identities. And I think that if your content puts across a brand identity, then you're much more likely to win on the content game, which brings your advertising and your e-commerce to be much more beneficial. If you're only selling, if I'm coming to your door and the only thing I have to say is, here, buy my shit, you're going to slam the door on my face and stop answering really, really quick. Like when my cousin tries to sell me Amway after not talking to him for 3 years, that conversation lasts about 10 messages and then he goes away.
Yep.
There's no relationship. I think it's something that you can do with the organic page. I think that if people have the budget, I mean, I'm a performance marketer. If $1 doesn't earn me $1.50, I don't want to do it. But I think that where you can really develop this and where brands are really winning is, I mean, and this is a lesson that I learned from a previous boss, is Facebook is also looking at everything inside of your ecosystem. It's not just your Facebook page. It's not just your Instagram account, but it's every asset you have inside the Facebook ecosystem. And one of those assets is also groups and pages and everything else. If your brand, one of the biggest brands that I was winning with had a Facebook group that had 250,000 people. So anytime an ad got finished, the sentiment for this brand, the conversation for anything that brand did was phenomenal. And that brand would also do live feeds where you can see the CEO. So the sentiment that Facebook saw around any content attached to that business was massive, which meant that I could see so much better results than other people would, because the sentiment and the CPMs and the reception of that content was something that Facebook wanted to show to people. And it knew exactly who those people were. Yeah, I mean, if you do a live and you get 2,000 viewers, that's phenomenal, right? Like, that means that, like, for instance, as just a for instance on my band's page, just as like somebody that isn't anything, right? If I do a live and I get 1,000 follow and I get 1,000 viewers and a couple hundred comments, if I then post something immediately afterwards, whatever I post afterwards is going to get hundreds of engagements immediately, because Facebook is pushing that out right away. And it's not only the net result of all the content you have, but how quickly it gets adopted. So when you go live, the engagements happen really fast. So if you have a regular delivery system that constantly gets people excited about anything that you're doing, then you're gonna win. And you see brands that kill on this are like BuzzFeed. That's their bread and butter, right? And then you see like Tasty. That's their bread and butter. You see, IG Lad, like that's what they're doing. Is these are all content plays where they know they've got like 10 or 20 different things, and anytime they put something out, it's either going to catch fire or they get rid of it. And if you delete something, that's totally fine. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't count against you. You're just saying, hey, don't consider this in the next thing. Like, why do I need, if I make some post, say a brand says something and people don't respond positively to it, why does it need to be there? Yeah. Like, you can get rid of it. Like, it doesn't matter. It's only there for, posterity's sake, and screw it. If it's bad for your business, get rid of it. Like, you wouldn't just leave a product on the shelf just because, I put it on the shelf. Like, no, like, if it's not selling, you get it, you get rid of it. I've seen brands where, like, I saw a brand that got into the health and wellness space and they made gym equipment and they could not sell it. And they had it on their shelf for 5 months. It was costing $10,000 a month to house this shit. And I said, you want to know the number one thing you can do for your bottom line is give that to a school and save yourself $10,000 a month. How much money do you want me to spend on ads for you to break even versus me giving you $10,000 a month? Which, by the way, is far less than you're paying me. So I'm going to pay for myself every month just by you giving something away. The number one thing that I'm looking at right now as far as hacking is, I understand machine learning is trying to do its best job. So what can I do to train it to understand what my objectives are? Because it doesn't understand English or whatever language you're speaking. Like, I don't care who you are. I mean, you guys are in Canada, so French or English or whatever, right?
Oui.
It doesn't know that. You're not telling it what your goal is. So when it gives you a bad day or a good day, it doesn't know any better because you haven't told it what's good and bad. So what I'm really working on right now is, how do I train an inanimate object to understand my business goals? And that has become the number one thing that's the driver of efficiency. And in that way, I have seen time and again efficiency gains far better than anything else by just telling the machine learning what your goal is. I had somebody, it's like if you're, when you're training a kid, if they can't understand you, like, okay, if maybe they're deaf, how do you teach them what to do? Like, you learn ways to communicate with people that might not understand all of your words. How do you teach a kid what the alphabet is, right? It's positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. Yep. So you just do the exact same thing, and you have to understand what that reward and punishment system is for the Facebook platform. Well, one, I love the Power 5, and I remember when we were testing out each individual thing like 2-3 years ago. I remember when, like, it was just an idea in Menlo Park, and it was great to see this come through. It's funny, on the back of my laptop right now, I have a sticker, like this transparent sticker of the Power 5 like test program, like the alpha of the Power 5 test program, and it's like the Power Rangers. It's this complete thing that they couldn't do, but some engineer did it. It's totally violating all rules. but I keep it as like a nice thing.
Oh, that's great.
I completely buy into it. I think it's absolutely there. I think all you really need to do is limit the fringes. So if you give guidelines, if you give safety nets to understanding what those goals are, and we can go into massive detail about some examples of what that looks like, but if you can go into that, I think then you can really start to train the system to understand what it is. And it's as simple, I mean, for what it's worth, you can let the kid eat anything out of the fridge, but if you see it eating a cookie, you slap its hand. You're not preventing it from eating anything. You're saying you can make all the choices you want, but if you pick up something out of that, I'm gonna slap you, right? Like I'm gonna slap your hand and you're gonna be in trouble, right? Not slapping children, you know what I'm saying?
I could tell you're a parent.
So like that small bit of understanding, right? And I think it's what I think people try to do is either outsmart the system or they try to make wholesale judgment calls. And what I find is much better is incremental small changes, small little moves with really big ideas can if you're doing testing, really big things, you can move mountains. And all you really need to do is just say, I need to be 1% better than yesterday. I mean, it's that whole like that Nissan or Toyota, that's their entire business model. 100% native. It's the free tool. It's the automated rules. It's the #1 most overlooked tool inside of Facebook. And I've actually talked to the automated rules team about telling them to make it more user-friendly. And they say, well, look, nobody uses it. We're super excited about it. We pushed it for like a year. Nobody got into it. And so now those guys are also working on the machine learning. They're working on like the new Facebook feed and I remember when you had a regular thing and then a power editor and then it all became power editor and then that got souped up 10 times. But the native tool does absolutely everything that you need it to do. And I think that you can run an entire business on 4 or 5 business rules. So for instance, I personally ascribe to, I've got like 2 major rules that I run, 2 types of rules, and then something to kind of clean it up. But the 2 types of rules I do, one is called a limiter. It's basically saying, because I'm an old audio engineer, it's a limiter. It's basically saying, if my performance has no way of achieving my business goal today, I'm going to turn this ad off. And I run ads day to day. And if you're not able to deliver me my goal, no matter what, say for instance, you're going to spend $100 today and you're $50 in and my cost goal is $20. That means that in the next $50, you need to deliver me 5 conversions for $10 or better. The likelihood of that happening is nothing. So I'm not going to let you fail anymore today because I've got half a dozen other things that are working. So I'm not going to let you fail anymore. And then I have something that's more of a sliding scale, which says, well, maybe you've gotten a couple, say the $100 and $20 example, maybe you got 2 by the time it went to $70. Well, that's great, but there's no way in the next 30 you're going to be efficient enough to get down to my goal. So I can have 2 or 3 of those that turn ads off throughout the middle of the day, and then I'll reactivate everything at night. And I will only use it. I will use it on every ad that I'm running, and across every campaign, because I only have a couple campaigns. I've managed $50,000 days across like 3 campaigns. You don't need more than that. With that being said, I think the last piece is, if any ads aren't good enough, we'll get rid of them. And I mean, I can go into the whole rigmarole about that stuff too, but I think those are the 2 primary rules, is just reducing exposure to inefficiency and then only relying on things that you're willing to give that risk to. But I know we don't have time to get too much into that, but like to give an example of how this works, like optimization of your account. So say you're running those automated rules, right? And so then you're saying, okay, these are some limitations. Let's just say, for instance, that you've got 10 ads and your net performance is like $75, right? So you've got maybe 10 ads at $100 and 10 ads at $50. That gives you a net 75 on average. If you're able to eliminate 1 or 2 of those $100 conversions, then your net becomes less than 75, which totally makes sense. Now what happens is, remember, Facebook is going to look at the performance that's previously been given. So if your net average performance is $75, Facebook's going to probably deliver you $75 tomorrow. If you can get your net average to 65, to 60, to 50, it's going to probably deliver you 65, 60, or 50. So what you need to do is use the automated rules to deliver impressions and conversions that aren't good. You're basically saying, the way that you slap it out of the hand is saying, you're on your way to getting a $100 conversion. I need you to be at a 75. Once you pass a certain threshold, I know that you're not going to likely get to that point ever again today, so I'm going to slap it out of your hand. So if you can get more conversions below your average, obviously your average is going to go down. So then when the learnings happen at the ad level, every ad itself builds out a data pool basically of all the people that it's seen and all the people, the success that it's had. So every ad is effectively making a lookalike audience based off the people that have converted with it. So every ad itself is making a lookalike audience where each piece of content is finding people that respond positively to it. Like we were talking about, people want to see the things that are good for them. So you might have 3 or 4 different sales pitches, right? And one sales pitch, one there's people interested in moms really like this, and really into ducks into this, and people really into clowns, they like this, but you have 3 ads inside of one ad set. It means you can incrementally reach 3 different groups of people. Maybe you have 1 or 2 for each one, so you can see what does good today and what does bad today. Because an ad that's gangbusters for the last 2 weeks might just have a shit day. That's fine. If you have multiple options, you can day trade between them. So ultimately what happens is, because the ads make lookalike audiences, when you run those ads inside of very broad audiences, you're not limiting their exposure. And if you have very few audiences, like a broad audience and maybe like a lookalike, then in one large like stacked lookalike based on different business objectives, you're giving that ad the broadest audience, which gives it the best chance of finding more users. And because if you have, instead of having a half a dozen or a dozen campaigns with a half a dozen ad sets in each one, creating 60, 70, 100 different ad sets, each one with a few ads in it, where every ad might get $50 today, might get 200 today, but your budget's like $5,000. Instead, if you put that in 2 or 3 places, you're letting each one of those see a ton of data points, which means every single ad itself is getting a dozen or 2 dozen conversions on a regular basis. So the lookalike audience that each ad is creating is smarter and smarter and smarter. And then when you eliminate the lowest efficiency ads on any given day, your efficiency will continue to improve. And then all you really need to do is continue to lower what those thresholds, what those rules are. Once you hit stability, if you're at $75 and you implement some rules and you get it down to 70, and then you're seeing that constantly, then you notch it down again so you can get a little bit lower. And so what you're really trying to do is prevent net higher CPAs on any given day. And you can do this with like half a dozen ads. Like if you have 2 or 3 ads and 2 or 3 ad sets or 2 or 3 campaigns, and you're spending all your money there, each one of them is likely to see hundreds of dollars of spend a day. And if say your cost per goal is $30, right? If you're spending $500 roughly per ad or $500 per this group, each one has a massive chance to win and to fail. And you want it to fail. You want it to understand what good and what bad looks like. And when you start to turn ads off, what you'll find is the ones that are continually providing business objectives that you like are going to get more of the spend. For instance, if you've got 3 ads running and one of them gets turned off and the second one gets turned off and the other one's doing okay, what happens the next day? That one that did okay is probably going to get a little bit more spend after a week, after a month. The one that constantly gets turned off, even if you just leave nothing on it, it's going to get very little delivery. So when you're doing creative testing, all you need to do is find new ads to perform as good or better than your net average. And then you take that loser, you kick it out, and you bring in a new one that's doing better. So if you've got a $50, $60, a $70, an $80, and a $90 CPA ad, 5 ads in an ad set, and you bring in something and you're averaging $70, if you bring in some creative testing that's coming in at 65, you drop it in, you kill the 90, your CPA is going to drop 10% the next day. Overnight, you're going to see that performance. And so that's much better way of optimizing versus trying to find the right ad for the right audience. That theory worked 5 years ago before the machine learning was good. And that theory, like you were getting to before, really comes from a lot of the managers and a lot of the people that were really in charge of a lot of agencies came up in the Google world, where it's very, very much about CPC and defining the right ad. It was display advertising and everything else, where they're not really akin to Facebook's algorithm is seeing trillions of data points across billions of users 24 hours a day. It knows more than you. It's smarter than you. It's smarter than me. And hundreds of really, really smart people that are probably smarter than both of us are the ones building all that and are constantly updating it. So by allowing that machine learning to just understand what your business objectives are and preventing it from failing, just small little nudges in the right direction, like bumpers when you go bowling, right? Like just, okay, well, you can't gutter. You're not allowed to gutter today. If you're going to gutter, we're just going to go home. Then it's okay. And the only ads that you're using are the ones you have a high confidence in. Yeah, I think the number one thing is I think people don't fully understand the way that Facebook looks at ads. Like they don't understand that an ad makes a lookalike audience based off the performance of that ad and finds other users like it. So you might say, well, this ad might really appeal to rodeo clowns and this ad might really appeal to fans of ducks and this one might really appeal to moms. It's like if they're all in an ad set, they're going to find those people. right? So I think people really focus on this old school mentality. And I remember when it came around, because I remember before there was a conversion pixel. I remember every conversion event was a different pixel you had to put on the thing. We were doing traffic campaigns and trying to back out results. Like, it was a nightmare, but I remember that. And that's where the thinking really came from. But now understanding that Facebook's ecosystem is built around having the ad build an audience for its own and then letting it go out and find those people, I think that's one of the biggest misunderstandings, because really the only reason why you would have more than one campaign for for any business objective is because you're trying to hack that somehow. So I will only have one campaign per business objective. If my business objective is the prospect for this product, I'm not going to have 10 campaigns competing with each other with overlap and all this other stuff. I'm going to go cite back to the Bombas case study, which Facebook has been preaching like gospel for 5 years, and it's because it works. Where you basically take an entire ad account down to one campaign with two audiences, a broad and a lookalike 1%. And what you're doing is that broad is reaching the most amount of people as efficiently as possible, and the lowest CPMs, so your conversion rates can be shit, but you're still going to be okay. And then the lookalike is providing is getting the low-hanging fruit, the best customers. Now, what I've done to improve upon that, and we've done 6-figure case studies with Facebook coupons across a dozen brands, is stacking those lookalikes to build them on business objectives. So my lookalikes will be previous buyers, CRM list, everybody that's ever bought the product. I want to be able to convert them for as cheap as possible. And then using the value-based lookalike audience that Facebook has. These are the customers that are likely to spend the most amount of money. Now, it's like a Venn diagram, right? So one of them is full of everybody that's going to convert for cheapest. The other one is everybody willing to spend the most amount of money. And then I'll do one more lookalike on the buyers that have converted since I did creative testing. Because if they like the people that have converted since I've done creative testing, and all my ads are the ones that are winners of creative testing, then they're the buyers that are most likely to respond to the creative that I'm already using. And what happens is those three circles all kind of overlap in some Venn diagram, and Facebook will target the overlap first. And what you really want, I see the biggest mistake is people say, well, our lookalikes are killing it today, or our interest groups are doing this, is that you're looking at it the wrong way, because it's not, is this lookalike doing well? It's this, is what is the overall blended customer acquisition cost for your entire platform when you're managing platform, part of funnel by platform by part of funnel by platform. So if your Facebook prospecting is working, then it's, yes, maybe your lookalike is more efficient than your broad, but when you spend up in broad, you can scale your account by 2x. But because the lookalike is more efficient, it's going to be spending less, but it drags your net CPA down. And so I think anything beyond that needs to have a business objective. And this is a good rule for 90% of people. There's always a reason why somebody's doing better than that by cheating that rule. And every business has a little, tweak to it. It's not a golden rule. I'm not trying to sit here and tell people this is the only way to do it and everything else is dumb. But the more audiences you use, the more diversified your spend is, the less intelligent you're letting Facebook be, the more mistakes you're going to have by sheer just lack of training, which means it's going to be longer and longer for you to get stable results. And if you don't have stable results, you can't use optimization techniques to become more efficient. And it's always more efficient to get 10%. It's always easier to get 10% more efficient than it is to maintain the efficiency and spend 10% more. Yeah, and if you're doing your creative testing against a broad audience and the only ads you're using are the ones that work at broad, and then your main audience, your entire campaign is built around targeting a broad audience, you from the very first day instituted a system that works for everybody. And if it works for everybody and it's stable and you can spend all of your money in one place, then you're going to be able to really focus on week over week, month over month improvements on efficiency or scale. Everything else is basically just, it is smart and it's busy work and it's obviously has value, but I see people working 4 or 5 hours a day banging their head against the wall to maintain efficiency. And my thing is, like, I can answer almost every business question that I'm needing to in less than 90 minutes a day. Like, if I have to spend more than 90 minutes a day on any Facebook account, it's because I'm diving into big thinking or I'm trying to come up with the next test, but I'm not actually in the platform for nearly that amount of time, because I'm just saying, ultimately what it comes down to is how's my creative testing doing? Do I have something that's better than my control ads? Yes or no? If yes, I drop it in, I get rid of my worst control ad. And then what is my business objective this week? Am I trying to be more efficient or am I trying to spend more money? Then it's a really simple thing. If I'm trying to be more efficient, great. What's my budget allocation between top of funnel and bottom of funnel? And that's one of the big things I see people make a mistake all the time is they're never spending enough money at the bottom of the funnel. They're like, well, my retargeting is doing well. And I'm like, great. Are you spending in full? Are you at a point now where you cannot spend any more money in retargeting and it's doing worse than prospecting? No, then you're not spending enough in retargeting. Everybody wants new customers, but the number one fallacy is people say, if they click and they don't buy, they don't like you. It doesn't mean that at all. The likelihood of me coming to your house for a first date with the condom on, ready to go, and us doing it right when I knock on the door is zero, right? And what you're saying is, if you don't do that, then you're going into retargeting, and I got to put you through this whole journey where it's $2 or $3 per click, and I might spend $10, $15 to get a no. That's really inefficient. I'll just let everybody continue to make decisions and treat everybody equally, and just say, look, these conversions are going to work. These sales pitches are going to work at scale. That's the only thing I'm concerned about in the business. Unless you're a really niche product, and if you're a really micro budget product where you can't spend enough to drive 7 to 8 conversions a day per campaign and 50 conversions per week to get out of the learning phase, and that's a whole other strategy to go down. I mean, I think if I had to say the top 3 things that I'm most excited about, one is absolutely e-commerce integration, because I think the more amount of efficiencies you can gain there, the easier it'll be. Because, I mean, I remember back in the day, like I did a case study I was on the show called The Pitch. They used to air after Mad Men, where it was like ad agencies competing to be the AOR for a company. And we did something for 1-800-Flowers. And it was the whole groundbreaking theory was they were going to run a campaign on Facebook. You couldn't do anything else. And so we ended up doing a social gifting campaign. And then it was like the first time anybody had really been doing something like that. And what resulted was an ability to send somebody a gift card of like a coupon to 1-800-Flowers or Starbucks or something like that directly inside the platform. And it went away after about 6 months. And this was maybe 6 years ago. What I think will be awesome is a buy now button directly in the feed. If you get a one-click buy in the feed that connects you to a Facebook pay, then you're eliminating all the barriers to entry. Because I think the number one most important thing is when somebody clicks on your ad, every second that it takes them or every click that it takes them to actually get to the purchase, the less likely they are to buy from you. There are, again, some exceptions. I've seen people do these artificial, like value building things that totally work for them. These aren't golden rule, but if I have to click on your site and then find the buy button and then click there and then make some options and then if it takes me like 5 minutes, I'm already done. I don't care. Mm-hmm. Like I'm interested. This is cool. I'm gonna go on Amazon and buy it from your competitor. You just spent money so that I can make your competitor rich. So I think the most exciting thing is that integration with Shopify and WooCommerce and BigCommerce, where they're gonna be able to pull in that integration. Also, I'm really excited about it because I have a lot of stock in Shopify. Right. Really good buy, by the way, in case you're an investment nerd like me. I got my Bitcoin, I got my Litecoin, I got my Shopify. Always going to Facebook for Q3 and Q4 because when everybody dumps their money in to make sales for the holiday times, you just bank and then sell by January. But that's neither here nor there. I think the other 2 things that I'm really excited about is also the data integration. Because the thing that makes Facebook really smart is the machine learning. So anything that can improve that machine learning ecosystem. And then also the placement options. Like anywhere else that they can show ads. I'm a big believer in auto placement, auto bidding, auto targeting, like manual, I guess it's now lowest cost bidding. I think it's still auto placement, but like, all of those things and allowing Facebook to control those impressions on any platform for letting Facebook's ecosystem to do, basically cerebral hacking to understand what's going to make somebody convert and whatnot. I'm always down to let them do it because I know ultimately they're going to try to continue to have me spend money. And if I'm using automated rules and creative testing to let them know my business objectives are, they're not going to spend where it doesn't work for me. But if I can get incremental reach, I'm all about it.
Nice.
I think ultimately the adoption of the technology is still on the upswing. I mean, there are still people that aren't doing it. It's still not a best practice for every single person. Mm. And I think ultimately, the more people that there are with money, the more people there are with money. Let me put it to you in absolute terms. The more teenage girls there are in the world, the more money people will have to spend on them. That's the number one market to sell anything in the world is girls 14 to 20. More people spend money on girls 14 to 20 than any other demographic on the face of the planet across every single culture. That's the number one driver of e-commerce dollars, period. The more of them that there are, the more money is going to be spent on getting stuff for people. And if you can provide a better conduit for that happening, then you're going to make more money. And I think ultimately in-store shopping as a requirement for society, especially after this quarantine, is being proven to be an out of touch mentality. And I think that Amazon was first to it. He was, you know, however you want to say it, Bezos is basically the guy that was like, I think when people are drunk at their house, they're going to want something sent to their place for free, and I'll give it to them. He was that big idea, and he's going to make $1 trillion on it with a T. It's going to happen. That is a fundamental shift that is the same thing as like Sears and Roebuck was 100 years ago. You know? I mean, I think what it does more than anything is it lowers the barrier to entry to somebody with a good idea. And you can use, I mean, as a music business guy, I can use a music business analogy. Napster destroyed the music industry because it exposed the level of corruption and overcharging and unnecessary infrastructure, right? Like it used to be in the 90s, if you got a song on MTV, MTV was the tastemaker for everybody, and you got millions and millions of people saw it. And basically, if you want to get a #1 album, the #1 way to do it was to get your song on the radio and to get it on MTV. And if you can do that, then you were fundamentally going to succeed. Napster came in, destroyed that entire model, and then made it so that anybody with a recording studio could make a record. And you saw all of these people just pop up that were like good people. And the democratization of that, whether you want to say it one way or the other, Justin Bieber is a great example of how a talent on YouTube can undermine billions of dollars being spent by the recording industry. Say what you will about Justin Bieber, but he was a 13-year-old kid on YouTube. He was an 8-year-old kid on YouTube.
From Portsmouth, Ontario.
Yeah, like that's what he did, right? And his success was also matched at a global level. It was scaled by Simon Cowell, which was basically doing the exact same thing, but making it a game show in every country in the world. And, you know, now he's got tight t-shirts and nice cars everywhere. But I think the democratization of that, basically allowing anybody with a good idea to succeed, is a phenomenal way that undermines the value of people. And now the problem is, I think ultimately the people seeing is the gateholders of that democratization are in this really awful place. We're seeing basically the same thing as like steel barons or oil barons, right? Like the same thing, you could call Amazon the same thing, or Facebook as like US Steel, or you know what I'm saying? Like, or any Middle Eastern country built on oil. Like you now have centralized the power to the people that provide that. And I think that's one of the things that's really exciting, but it also becomes really dangerous. And I think that ultimately what will happen is some sort of control being put on that locally in different markets, whatever. But I think right now, the people that are utilizing it are able to make the most of it. And obviously barriers will come in. I remember when Facebook was $2 CPMs, now it's 20, right? Like you could print money on Facebook. You could 10x every dollar that you spent. Now if you're getting 2, that's great. But I think that ultimately comes down to democratizing that. And what will ultimately win is the things that occur off platform that we talked about before, is the customer service and the brand identity. And you might be somebody that's really good at drop shipping stuff from AliExpress. And, you know, we all know those individuals that are making a lot of money doing it. But if you want to win long-term, it's building customer service. Like, do you call your customers? What is your return policy? Like all of these good business ethics, and good business will always win outright over bad business, not in good ideas, but well-executed business plans. And I think that what we're seeing is, you know, 20 years ago, for you to start a business where you would be shipping products directly to people's homes anywhere in the world was an idea that was an inconceivable business plan unless you had billions. Now, I've got some students inside of my Facebook group that, like, they're 16-year-old German kids that are paying for college.
Yeah.
So, like, that's it, you know?
That's it. I think that's where we'll leave it today, Charley.
Okay, sounds good. Power to the children. Let's save the children.
We got to save those kids. No, but I'm interested for the way what we've all just gone through, what we're all through here for the past 3 months will change the world. And you hit the nail on the head with, with a lot of the sort of like false structures will fall, whether it's in education, whether it's maybe government, whether it's in, police we're seeing or wherever.
Yeah.
We're in for some big changes. And I feel like where we're at, in advertising, with it being as accessible. I think it's a really interesting comparison to talk about steel barons versus steel barons never made it, maybe they did make it easier, democratize, if they made steel available to everyone, I guess maybe they did railroads. Facilitate.
So they built railroads. Yeah. They built cities, skyscrapers, railroads. They made population expansion a viable thing.
It's true.
You know what I'm saying? So oil barons, they allowed the Industrial Revolution to occur, right? At scale. And cars, right? Ford, yeah, he made a car, but what did he really do? Ford made a product that allowed the average customer, the average individual to define a lifestyle that went outside of what they could walk. Which right? Or like what your horse could do. So that's a fundamental shift in society at large. And so we're just doing the exact same thing. And for what it's worth, and I've had to come up with this to have peace of mind when I worked at companies or for products that I didn't necessarily totally believe in. Ultimately, if you're a really good Facebook advertiser or any digital e-com advertiser, what you're doing is you are figuring out a way to provide value to somebody and do the work for them. Where I do the best on Facebook, for instance, is when I'm finding somebody in need of a specific solution, and I'm finding the most efficient way of providing somebody in need of a solution with the solution to their problem. If you have a problem, my job is to find you and solve it with something that makes your life better. I'm selling aspiration 99% of the time. So you want your life to be better. If I can find you to make your life better and provide it for you, maybe buy 2 get 1 free plus free shipping, whatever else, and then mazel tov to me. But like, that's my ultimate job, is to use this platform to provide a higher quality, to provide aspiration to individuals that might not otherwise get it. Because the honest truth is there's plenty of things that you might want to get, but if there's not a store within walking distance, or now that we have cars, thanks to Ford, driving distance to you, and they haven't advertised to you that it exists, and you can actually buy it and price check it and understand that you're getting the thing exactly that you want, you're not going to have it. And so it makes a certain quality of life attainable to anyone. And if I try to think about it like that, then I can sleep at night, because sometimes I've gotten really hectic about certain things. I've sold everything under the sun, like dozens and dozens of brands. Spent, like I said, I used to spend $1 million for half a dozen brands. I've done everything.
That goes out the door at that scale.
Yeah. You have a moral quandary with the things occasionally, absolutely. But I just try to look at it more along the lines of, if I can, my job is to most efficiently provide that opportunity for somebody and do it in a way that creates enough profit margin for me to be able to do it for other people, to allow you achieving your aspiration to pay for my time so that I can achieve mine and then reach 2 other people, right? Like, that's ultimately the goal.
I love it. Leave it. If your group find out more, we already found out about your band. Do you take problems to your group? Anything you want to plug?
Sure. Let me find the thing here real quick. And by the way, for my group, I do lives every Saturday at 10 a.m. I have a free group. I do ebooks. And here's the group, by the way. But
Facebook ads, bots, sexy tips, e-com, Shopify. You got a lot of keywords.
Yeah, there's some SEO. There's some SEO. But I started this a little over a year ago, and I'm at 12,000 people. I personally approve every single person. I personally approve every single post. I personally respond to every single question. And every week I do an hour-long class that's free. And in those classes, we address everybody's questions from the week. And I give a lesson and some homework. And there is an ebook. There is a Patreon if you want to help. And it absolutely does. But it's not a front end to some like course or whatever, because if you can't afford that, you can do any of the homework for any of the weeks and you can get any of the content you want for free.
Amazing.
So,
Fantastic.
because the thing for me, more than anything, is that exchange with everybody. That 16-year-old kid in Germany might have an idea where I don't have a good reason why his dumb idea is a bad one. And I have brought fundamental ground-changing, like landscape-changing concepts to advertisers that I've worked for because somebody had a dumb question I didn't have a good answer for. So I get so much out of it that I'm more than willing to give it all away just so that more people can provide me value. And also, if I'm answering questions for 12,000 people, nobody that I'm going to get on the phone with is going to have something new, which means I'm kicking ass all over the place.
Well, hot damn, Charley. I'm glad to be kicking ass alongside you. I want to thank all killer, no filler. I think this will be the first of a hopefully regular installment where we.
I try to get my no killer, all killer, no filler hat going here.
Nice. Yeah.
Killing it.
That's enough. All right, Charley. Thanks again. Stay safe, play, and have a great weekend.
Thank you very much, my man. I appreciate it. See ya.